Just a few questions, and I'll use that really cliched, laughed about age old adage. But some of my best friends are, insert whatever into the caption box. I just want to talk about something that's happening in LA. It's certainly not something new, and actually, New Zealand is a very progressive country when it comes to having women in various roles and also having trans persons in various roles, such as performing the function of mayor for a city. But it's done in New Zealand's very earthy, organic, casual, real way. I want to talk about something happening in LA, in California, in CA30, with this congressional election. And it's to do with a candidate who is a man. His name's G. Pudlow. And in 2019, because of an interest in politics, G. Pudlow's decided to run for a local neighborhood council, so his council of Silver Lake in Los Angeles, and decided to do so as his drag queen persona. I think maybe must have been someone that was on RuPaul, perhaps even. I think he's got quite the profile as a drag queen. The drag queen name he uses is Maebe, Maebe, and then the capital letter A, period. Got to get the period in there, right? Girl, so maybe a girl. But I think legally he would have had to run as G, maybe a girl, Pudlow, right? But he takes on his role as this progressive neighborhood councilman. He's the treasurer as maybe a girl. And so he's been doing this for a number of years and has a vast array of interests. And back then was talking about how through his new political affiliations, he was able to pay closer attention and get more involved with some of the things that are dear to his heart, like homelessness, right? Now, with LGB, and let's just say LGBTQIA plus groups, there is a large and terrible situation around homelessness, disenfranchisement, physical violence, etc. So maybe a girl was saying, well, this has just been great because I get to go and stay overnight at these shelters where these, basically where these vulnerable gay youth are. And now we know that XL Lanzac has been taken off the airways, TTXL Lanzac, by people that are frightened of hearing the truths. And sadly, what's happening now is truths are having to come from people like me, people previously extremely just open-minded and accepting, and you do you, boo. But when we see predatory behavior, so this is the wolf in sheep's clothing type behavior, you have to stand up, and it makes you a target, and it makes people think you're full of hate, and actually it's love that you are trying to put out into the world, love of humankind and a desire to protect the vulnerable. and a desire to not let people trick you until it's too late. So why would G. Padlow want to run for council and now for Congress in 2022 as maybe a girl and not himself? He's identified in the past. I mean, okay, so maybe recent history even shows that it might be hard to come out as a person that is trans rather than, say, a man who does drag. But drag queen culture is, it's an art, it's a hobby, it's an outlet, it's entertainment, so it's work. It's not trans, although maybe some people might tell you it's an acceptable way for them to cross-dress. Why would he want to run as maybe a girl? Well, he says for the attention, so you can be kind and say, well, yeah, meaning that people will listen. And he is grabbing attention when he's in his platform heels. He describes himself as this 8-foot woman, you know, and he's beautifully presented, but his makeup is not feminine. He is presenting as a drag queen. You must be clear with this. He's not presenting as who he's trying to say he is, trans-binary now. No, he's a gay man. Perhaps he's even an autogynephiliac. He also understands that this does give him leverage. It gets him attention and it gets him a kind of leverage, this kind of protection, because people might be afraid, but they want to be progressive, right? They want to be woke, you know. And there's images of maybe a girl sitting around a boardroom table at Silver Lake, I believe, with, you know, just the typical ultra wokes. So how is this representative of society? It's just representing themselves, you know, boys as girls and these, you know, unicorns and the such, right? And so he's presenting as a drag queen, maybe a girl, not as a trans version of G. Padlow, whom he's trying to tell you is his authentic self. We know this is bullshit. Now, I'm not making judgment on how pure his intentions are all across the board, right? I mean, indeed, for Congress, he's throwing everything in there. He's guns, women's rights, race, poverty, war, you know, it's all in there in his manifesto, okay? And I think we need to be very cautious here of people using a persona and using, he calls it his armor, right? Well, what is this grown 35-year-old man like in his head where, he needs his armor to go out and, you know, and do this battle, so to speak, right? To make him confident enough. Well, is this a man that should be meddling in our rights? Is this mental illness that we're all, it's like, you know, the emperor's new clothes again? And what you need to realize is that this makes it very difficult for people to oppose him. He will say otherwise, but what if somebody, because he essentially legally has to just, I think, run as G. Padlow with maybe a girl in the middle, but you know, he wants she, her, or they, them pronouns. Now, what if someone were to slip up? What if someone were to slip up, maybe a 60-year-old councillor or congressman that opposes something that G. Padlow was trying to get passed as legislation and accidentally says he, or thinks, well, I can call you Mr. Padlow. I don't need to call you maybe a girl. It's an assumed moniker. It's not your legal name. Because, and do you see what's happening here? This is, and that person he could be outed. He could get sued for harassment. It can be used to promote agendas. It can be used to scare people into silence, to shut them down. Do you see how aggressive it is? How passive aggressive? And what actually happens is, rather than everyone, oh, hi, James here, this is James, but he likes to be called Joni. Well, fine. If you want to be called Joni, I wouldn't mind. But now, do you see? We have to mind. We have to mind, because those open-minded and kind attitudes have been taken advantage of, that it's been manipulated now, right? So now we have to say, actually, now we've got to dial it right back. We've got to go right back. It can't be just on a person by person basis. We need to dial this right now. And this is why, Exelanzic was taking this hardcore line. You've got to look to the future with this, right? So is this, he may not be anything other than an innocuous person as far as predatory behavior goes. He may not have intentions of misusing this persona that he is pushing out and using. But where will it end? I mean, I think some of the things he wants to do, superficially looking at it, are good. The privatization of not-for-profits has created a system where people actually don't get the treatment, where society is really not served, but people are lining their pockets. And you would not believe the millions that people are sucking out of government and not flowing into the communities they're saying they're serving as their not-for-profit. If you do some research onto that, maybe you've got first-hand experience of it. Maybe you know a little bit about it. It's appalling, right? So I applaud maybe a girl for those stances. But is it right that as a drag, see, people are going to start confusing drag with trans. It happens all the time anyway. And I sense maybe a girl is using terms trans and non-binary to keep the plane flying. She's had a great takeoff, and now she's got to keep those wings, keeping her airborne. The wings being now how he tells you he identifies, so that you are the one in danger. If you put a foot wrong, a word wrong, maybe a girl's not taking any risk anymore. Everybody around maybe a girl is taking a risk. So, and is this right that just the citizen is not tried and tested for what? Why would they be allowed access to homeless shelters overnight, where vulnerable LGBTQIA youth are? Now, I'm not making allegations here. I'm asking a question, because one of the deep concerns that intelligent, measured citizens have is the infiltration of predators into environments where they don't belong, where their resources are, okay? So predators into schools, predators into healthcare, predators into places where women's shelters, things like this, okay? Women's prison. We're seeing it in sport. These people are acting in a predatory nature. The male swimmers that now say they're trans and they're swimming. Isn't it funny how the more people that have gone in to swim against them as trans and are beating them, the original people are dropping off once they're beaten. They're there to win and they are there to take. So I think maybe a girl should have the confidence now as G. Pudlow, after knowing he can be successful in a neighbourhood council. He's treasurer and he's the councillor at large, progressive. He's running for Progressive Democrats now. Surely this was time for him to run as himself, because shit's getting serious, and shit's not getting serious for him, although his status elevation might be getting serious. Shit is getting serious for the people that are impacted by the farce. So just think of other people that are drag performers, people that are just so talented and actually, and are beautiful people. Imagine if Pearl wanted to run in a political race to office. Pearl would not run as Pearl, okay? I'm just telling you that right now. It would not happen. And I think we need more voices, like other drag queens and kings, for example, speaking up to say, if you're trying to say there's not enough authenticity in politics, you don't do it from the persona of a drag queen. G. Pudlow wants to, separate these, something that's impossible because, we are run by corporations, not politicians. But, she wants to separate the big bucks out of politics and things like that. I mean, it's all very good things. How is inauthenticity, though? I mean, you might say, no, she's brave. She's actually being more authentic. No, because this is a gay man. This is a gay man. This is not a trans, non-binary. See, you've got this word fuckery already, right? This non-binary. There is no such thing, okay? Now, in your own private life, in your own home, with your friends, family, whatever you want to do, you be as non-binary as you like. But if you're a teacher in a school, you're just teacher of curriculum. If you are a mental health care worker, you can maybe be open about who you are. You're around adults, but you're not there to predate on vulnerable people or warp their minds about why they might be having certain issues. You're there to provide authentic, professional health care, okay? If you're a politician, you're there to serve all people. Now, all people need representation, and small factions and minorities need representation. But what happens is the minority rules a lot of the time. And you know, homeless shelters for LGBTQIA youth, and for abused women, abused men, the elderly, the drug addicted. Homeless shelters are important for everybody, and who is running these shelters and how are they being run is important, and who has access to these people. These people have rights to safety and privacy and dignity. How did G. Padlow present when he was representing himself as maybe a girl, and through that position got access to go and, you know, be at homeless shelters overnight? Did he still present? He got that position as maybe a girl, and that's his job, and being a job as this persona. Did he go to the homeless shelter as this person, or did he go as G. Padlow? So it's kind of, it's totally off. This person has acquired the T label. You know, they are a gay man. They are a gay man who is a magnificent drag performer, very good at his craft, and he's not presenting himself authentically. It's part of his identity, sure, and it's who he can bring to the table, you know, as G. Padlow. Do you think he should be going as far as running for Congress, is what I'm trying to say, as his drag queen persona, maybe a girl? Can you see the dangers here for people who might say the wrong thing, and he wants to use his extra power because he gets extra attention? I mean, anything a politician can do to, you know, we all know these charismatic people that can just have crowds eating out of their hands, right? You know, these are people that are going to be able to make waves and make changes and make good, right? Is this an authentic way to do it? Is this a reasonable way to do it? Is it acceptable? And it's not about being a bigot. It's not hate speech, okay? I don't want that bullshit. I completely accept what anyone wants to do in their life like this. But there are dangers here. And you just need to make sure that you can see them. I just wanted to have a little chat about that. I am a very open-minded person. I make no judgments about this, about what people want to do. If only you knew, and I'm not saying I'm a drag queen or LGBTQIA, I'm not, okay? I've already made my video saying, don't call me cis, right? Woman, man. Present and do and be how you want. Do not use it to get your own way, to affect other people. We must take a stand. This can so dangerously affect people's lives. It's taking from some, and it's very selfish and dangerous. And what it does is it lets predators in. Lets predators in places where they shouldn't be, with the vulnerable, you know, the sick, the elderly, with children, with women, boys, men, okay? Add it all in there, right? And it makes people vulnerable to not being able to do their own job efficiently. What if they're intimidated? What if they are accidentally confused, say the wrong pronoun? What if they actually don't respect this person's persona being there in a role that they've worked hard for as themselves? And what if this person is genuinely saying something that they can't morally or ethically agree with, or just logically agree with, And when they want to speak up against them, something about how they present their argument, if they say the wrong thing, hey, they can get punished for that just for the purposes of the drag queen, say, remaining on their own trajectory and taking others out behind them. Now, I'm not saying G. Pudlow is the type to do this. It can happen. And it doesn't have to be this person that's, making these waves, hitting through this glass ceiling, all of that. It doesn't have to be that specific first person. It's what they pave the way for. Because people use every little inch they're given. And they use and abuse. And you should know this by now. Okay? Give an inch, take a mile. And that's what's happened with our open-mindedness and our wanting to accept people and our truly being so accepting and understanding, is that there are always going to be people that take that as weakness, and they will they take advantage, they utilize it, and they're not being honest, and you won't see what their end game is until it's too late. All right, so I just wanted to open up a conversation about that because it goes a little way toward furthering things that I've already had chats about. The teaching of children in schools about gender identity, sexual preference, etc., right, and to kindergartners, by whom? Usually predators, and the discussions we've had about gender in general. Don't label me cis. I'm an adult female human. Therefore, I am woman. I am. Okay? And woman is the only descriptor I need. I'll speak to you later. Thanks for listening.